So, I'd like to spend just a couple minutes reminding you about some things about vectors, and then after that I'll be giving you a vector hand-in assignment, and I'll give you some tips on that, and then I'm going to let you work the rest of the period.
Did we get those things back that we did? What first hand?
The lab?
Yeah.
I did do some marking, and there's a few people I need to connect with because things weren't done quite right. So I will do that this period as well. Am I one of those people? I can't remember. No, I think you're good. Okay. So let's talk about vectors. So the first thing that you're going to need to be able to do under the vector sort of category is make sure you can draw a scale drawing of a vector. Okay? You need to be able to do that. Exactly what? Okay. So you need to be able to do a scale drawing of the vector. Okay? And then after that, then we move right into, you certainly need to know the difference between a vector and a scalar. Right? And you need to be able to add vectors. Okay? Now when I say add vectors, there's really kind of two ways to do it that you've been taught so far. Adding vectors. Right? You can do by scale drawing, which means, of course, using a ruler and a protractor, right? And how do we put the vectors? What fashion do we put them in, or what order? Tip to tail, right? So if you can put vectors tip to tail and draw a scale drawing and use a ruler to measure the result, that's it. Like it's not that challenging, right?
This is like review for a test.
I'm just reminding you, yeah. Now, what's the other way that you can add vectors? Not using a ruler. Using Pythagoras, right? Or Pythagorean theorem. Not my intent. Okay, so when I say Pythagoras, what do I mean there? I mean like c squared equals a squared plus b squared, right? And using Pythagoras isn't the only part of that, because you also have to find the angle, and how do we do that?
Tan.
Inverse tan, right? And remember, inverse tan, Tristan, only works with what kind of triangles? Right triangles. And yet, oddly enough, Monday night when I'm marking, I will probably see, I'm going to guess, up to 2 classes, I'm going to see about 4 or 5 people trying to use Pythagoras and inverse tan on non-right triangles. I'm going to shake my head, I'm going to look at the name, and I'm going to go, oh, it's going to be mean. Even after I say that, there'll still be some of you that do that. Don't do that. It's got to be a right triangle before you can do it. Okay, it's got to be a right triangle. Okay, so now there's going to be two kinds of questions. There's going to be like adding vectors where I'll say, here's vector A, here's vector B, and add them together. And it's pretty obvious that you're going to have to add. Okay, and then there's...
They're all going to be like word. They'll all be like word problems right on the test.
There'll be 2 kinds of adding vector questions. There'll be the first kind where it says, here's vector A, here's vector B, add them together. The second kind will be the kind where it's a word problem.
Is that why you were word problem?
Okay, so what kind of word problem might you see? Well, it might say something like, find the total displacement of body which undergoes individual displacements of 3 kilometers north and 5 kilometers east. Or a force of 10 units acts eastward upon an object and a force of 30 units acts in a southward direction. What is the resultant force?
What?
Words like resultant or overall or total kind of imply that you're going to add them together. Okay? So that's that. Now, we also have to deal with subtraction of vectors. And we learned that to do subtraction of vectors, Tristan, what do we do? When we subtract vectors, Tristan, what do we do? Maybe you should listen. How about we add the opposite? Is that not what we agreed yesterday? We add the opposite. So what I'm talking about there is like something like A minus B is equal to A plus minus B. Right? Adding the opposite, Howard. Which is what we did yesterday. Remember that? Okay. And then do we put things to the tail? Yep.
Yeah.
Everything, in fact, all you do is you flip that thing and then it becomes an adding question, and you can do it by scale drawing or you can do it by Pythagoras. And once again, I'm reminded that you can only do Pythagoras when it's a
Right triangle?
right triangle.
Right.
Right triangle. Okay? Now, there might be a word problem that deals with subtraction as well, and that would probably include the word displacement. And it would probably have the words like initial position and final position. And you would have to remember the formula that I showed you yesterday when I said delta D is final position minus initial position, and those are vectors. Okay? Displacement is initial position, or the words initial position and final position. Okay? So that's really it. Okay? Now, having said that, what I'm giving you this hand assignment right away, question number 3 is a little bit of a challenge, and later in the period when people sort of getting close to there, then I will give you some guidance there as well. Okay? For the time being, but all this work. I would like to sort of talk about handed assignments for a second.